Let's talk about sensory issues and how I manage them. Hey folks, welcome to the Autistic Adoptee channel. As the channel name suggests, I am both autistic and I am an adoptee. So recently, my wife and I played host to her sister and two of her sister's children, one of whom is our adult niece who has two children of her own, and both of our grandnephews were with her. So needless to say, it was a little bit chaotic and loud around here. At one point, I overheard my wife explaining to our youngest grandnephew, who's 5 years old, that we don't shout or squeal or scream in the house because it hurts Uncle Tad's ear. And which is true. Certain frequencies literally cause me pain. They actually cause me pain, especially in my right ear, and especially when they're particularly loud. And children's squeals, even squeals of joy, are one of those sounds that just pierce straight through my ear. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about sensory sensitivities that many autistic people have, and talk specifically about the ones that I struggle with, and maybe a little bit about how I manage them. So in general, everyone is susceptible to sensory issues, autistic or not. I know many allistic, neurotypical people, non-autistic people, who hate certain food textures, hate certain lights, hate certain fabrics, etc. And these are absolutely legitimate sensory squicks. They're sensory issues, right? The difference is in the ability to tune them out, and in just how much discomfort they actually cause. And at the heart of this disparity is the difference in how our brains actually work. Autistic brains are literally wired differently. Whereas allistic brains will pair or trim unused synapses and connections and stuff like that. Autistic brains do not. fMRI scans show that autistic brains have up to 4 times the synaptic activity during certain tasks. For instance, so as an example, this is a picture of an autistic brain doing a visual thinking exercise versus an allistic brain doing the same exercise. And you can see that there's a significant difference in synaptic activity. It's estimated that autistic brains process as much as 42% more information from the outside world than allistic brains do. On top of that, neurotypical people tend to be able to tune out up to, or filter out up to 90% of sensory input, while autistic people can only achieve this type of thing during periods of intense hyperfocus. In the previous episode, I talked about my difficulties with sleep, and this difference in brain wiring is potentially one of the reasons why autistic people have so many challenges with sleep. Our brains are simply far more active and are constantly processing sensory information. The additional connections in the brain can also mean that sensory inputs can be wired to different portions of the brain than just the quote unquote normal wiring that you would expect of a neurotypical brain. For some of us, certain sensory inputs are wired to pain centers of the brain, which is why many autistic people report sensory discomfort as physical pain. And this brings us back to the conversation my wife was having with our grandnephew about how squealing and shouting hurts my ear. And I do actually experience physical pain. Certain sounds feel like a needle is piercing my eardrum. I've even had the sensation that it felt like my ear was bleeding after certain really high-pitched, really loud sounds. And interestingly, I primarily experience this in my right ear. And I have bilateral hearing loss. I have a severe hearing loss in my right ear and a moderate bordering on severe hearing loss in my left ear. But my right ear is one where I have the most significant hearing loss in, and this is the ear that is affected most by high-pitched sounds, one that experiences the most physical pain. I find that interesting for a number of reasons, mostly because I'm more deaf in this ear, but also because I have a very different relationship with pain than most people. And because sensory issues often manifest, they often show up as being hypersensitive to things. But they can also show up as hyposensitivity, being underly sensitive to certain stimuli. And like some other autistic folks, I have a stupidly high pain threshold. I mean, I've literally broken bones. I've broken bones and not known it. I'm constantly finding scrapes and cuts and bruises on my body with no clue how I got them. I've literally been stabbed and not realized it at all until I felt the wetness from the blood. My ridiculously high pain threshold seems to mostly affect traumatic pain. So pain caused by physical trauma in the moment, right? And I say that because I do live with chronic pain. I have functional scoliosis in my spine due to a childhood injury, and I live with chronic back pain. I also have psoriatic and osteoarthritis that affects all my joints, but particularly affects my hands and my feet, my fingers and my toes. My hands are sometimes so wrecked that I've had to take months-long breaks from playing guitar, from making music. And my knees they constantly ache, they pop in and out, and you get the idea, right? My body is a wreck. I feel those chronic aches and pains, but I often don't notice traumatic pain when it happens. Weird, huh? Anyhow, I don't have the visual sensory issues that are common to many other autistic folks. For instance, lights don't bother me in the same way that they bother others, and other than the piercing, high-pitched sounds causing me pain, I don't have any other auditory sensory issues either. So I don't really have visual sensory issues other than the high-pitched sounds. I don't have any auditory ones. Like, you know how some autistic folks report being able to hear the buzzing of electricity in the walls or in the outlets or from other lamps or whatever. And I think my lack of auditory and visual sensory issues may be related to my hearing loss and my very long medical history with my eyes. Maybe I'll make a video about that someday. I don't know that for sure though, but that's my guess why I don't have many visual or auditory sensory issues. I do, however, have tremendous sensitivities regarding touch and feel, right? So, like wool sweaters or any similar type of fabric, that scratchy type of fabric, that's a hard no. I can't do it. Um, those fuzzy, like fabrics like corduroy or velour and other fabrics like that, they give me this weird sensation in my stomach. I don't even know how to describe it. When you touch it, it kind of makes my stomach crawl. I don't I don't know how to describe it any better than it happens. It makes me feel very weird touching those types of fabrics. Um, and again, this is all that brain wiring stuff where I think the sensory input from touching those fabrics or those types of textures, it is wired to a part of the brain that it's not wired for neurotypical people or for other autistic people for that matter. Who knows? Um, Clothing tags are they're an uncomfortable, like itchy sensation that builds and builds and builds until it's actually painful, like something scratching into or cutting into the skin. um Shoes that put any sort of pressure on the top of my foot, that pressure, that feeling of pressure on the top of my foot will build and build and build in discomfort until it's this dull, painful ache that just gets worse and worse and won't go away. Um, and actually, that's not just my feet. Anything that puts steady pressure on a single spot for too long will eventually start to become uncomfortable and then painful. And even if it felt nice at first, like cuddling and somebody's lying on your arm or something like that, that one spot, and then after a while, that one spot will just become this dull ache, and that just keeps getting more and more painful. Soft touches, like someone gently rubbing or caressing, my skin. It tickles uncomfortably, like massively. And then tickles them, like the intentional tickling that people do, right? That causes me to squirm and laugh and giggle or whatever. But it's also painful at the same time, if that makes sense. I think that goes back to the brain wiring, because it causes the typical reaction of the squirming and giggling and laughing, but it seems to also be wired to a pain center. And so I experience tickling. I experience the same squirmy laughing type of experience that everybody else does, but I also experience pain at the same time. It also generates this weird pain response. I have to sleep naked because the feeling of night clothes, getting bunched up or twisted up, it's horrid, and it feels so constricting, and it does put pressure on parts of your body that it just doesn't feel right. It's that specific pinpoint pressure as opposed to like weighted blanket, which is general overall pressure. Very different sensations. I also very much, this is a huge one for me, I cannot stand anything greasy, oily, slimy, or sticky on my skin. I love eating with my hands, but I have to wear gloves. I actually carry these nitrile gloves with me wherever I go. I actually have 4 in my pockets right now. I carry gloves everywhere that I go, especially if I know that we're going to be eating. I'll have the gloves with me. Or either that or I have to wash my hands immediately after eating, even if it's not finger food, even if it's just along with that whole greasy, oily, sticky, slimy, whatever sensation. I cannot stand lotions or any products that that leave like a residue on the skin. So like lotions, like soaps that don't rinse completely away. I hate lotion soaps that they have in most public restrooms, especially because they're scented also, and the scent stays with you, as well as the greasy feeling. I can't do aloe or ointments or things like that. It's primarily if it's on my hands. Like mosquitoes love me, and so I get bug bites all summer long. And so if I use a Q-tip or something to apply some anti-itch cream, that doesn't bother me as much as if I had the anti-itch cream on my hands from actually applying it. I can't handle that sensation. Soft water drives me crazy because the softer the water is, the more slimy more slimy feeling. It leaves your skin feeling slimy, and it feels like soap or shampoo or conditioner that they never rinse clean. So yeah, I have a lot of touch feel type of sensory issues. My greatest hypersensitivity might be smell. I think I get very easily overwhelmed by scents. Being trapped in an elevator or other confined space with someone who's wearing too much perfume or cologne or body spray or hair product or whatever, that's an absolute nightmare for me. Especially if it's more than one person and the scents that they're wearing are different. They're conflicting. They clash. It feels like my throat is closing and that the air is too thick to breathe, and then I'll begin to gag and cough, and it'll make my eyes water. I've actually experienced pepper spray and CNCS tear gas, both, and the effect is similar, right? Minus the burning sensation on the skin. I mean, I do feel that burning sensation in my mucous membranes in my throat, my lungs, my nose, sinuses. It just obviously not as intense as actual pepper spray or actual tear gas, but so anyhow, how do I manage these sensory issues? So for the touch sensitivity things, I've already mentioned a few methods of that already, right? Like I said, I carry these nitrile gloves with me everywhere, especially if I know that we're going to go out to eat or we'll be eating. I'm still working on the self-consciousness that I feel wearing those gloves in a restaurant, especially if it's a fancy restaurant. Like for our last anniversary, we went out for a very fancy Italian restaurant, and the garlic bread and things like that, being able to touch that, I used the gloves and I felt really self-conscious, but I am working very hard on giving myself permission to accommodate my sensory needs. I'm giving myself permission to give myself accommodations for my autistic needs in general. I mentioned that I sleep naked so that I don't have the night clothes getting all twisted up or bound up in the bed sheets. That feeling of having my movement constricted and restricted is very hard. It gets a very claustrophobic feeling. And if it's twisted up in the right way, that like a seam is cutting into you or something like that, that's that single point of pressure that will build and build and build and become incredibly painful and uncomfortable. I have found bamboo underwear and undershirts that fit closely, but they're not constricting. and they wick moisture and sweat away from the body, and they serve as a barrier between my skin and whatever else I'm wearing. And with the exception of these comfy sweatshirts that I have, um, I'm almost always in short sleeves. Even in the middle of winter, I wear short sleeve shirts. And that's specifically to not have the fabric touching my arms. And so that the parts where the fabric would touch me are actually the bamboo undershirt is serving as a barrier between my skin and the fabric. What else? I brush my teeth in the shower because I cannot stand the feeling of drooling and having the toothpaste and saliva dribble down my face and getting the toothpaste and saliva all over my hands. So brushing my teeth in the shower makes it easy to rinse all of that away, like as soon as it happens. I no longer wear shoes. I almost always wear sandals. And the sandals that I have now, they have a buckle for the strap, but they also have Velcro. So I've been able to set the Velcro so that the strap is just the perfect amount of pressure to hold the sandal on my foot, but without it pressing down and creating that ache on the top of my foot. And then I can just use the buckle to take the sandals on and off. Unfortunately, they no longer make these. And so when these sandals finally wear out and die, I have no idea what I'll do when that happens, when they wear out. So if anyone knows of a viable alternative or a viable replacement, please let me know. I'm actually it gives me some anxiety knowing that they're no longer made. In addition to alleviating that pressure issue, they also help keep my feet cool and dry because my feet overheat and sweat so easily. And actually, I just overheat and sweat easily in general, not just my feet, but my feet are particularly bad. So for the auditory issues, for that piercing sound in my ear, and actually, now that I think about it, I actually have more auditory issues than just that. If there's multiple conversations, a lot of background noise, a lot of ambient noise going on, it gets so distracting. I can't. It's hard to focus. Like being in a noisy bar and trying to have a conversation with one person while all of the bar noises, the clinking of the glasses, and everything is going on. I start to get incredibly. I don't know what the word is. Anxious. It's overwhelming. It can be too much. So for auditory issues, if I know that I'm going to a loud place, I have these earbuds from Shure, and these are Bluetooth earbuds. They act as earplugs. Like that's I don't know. They have like a 28 decibel rating, or I don't know. They block out almost all the ambient noise. But they have an environment mode that allows me to control how much sound is actually coming in. Otherwise, so the environment mode it's basically just passively lets sound through, but it has a volume control on my phone, so I can control how loud it is, and that way I can dial it in so that I can hear the person that I'm sitting at a table with or whatever, and all the rest of the ambient noise isn't bothering me nearly as much. For the scent issues, I'm very careful about buying products. I use a 7th generation free and clear laundry detergent, because it doesn't leave any scent on the clothes. Um, I don't use fabric softener, because in addition to the scent that fabric softener leaves on your clothes intentionally, um, and having that scent just follow you around all the time, everywhere, all just being omnipresent, was horrific. But in addition to the scent, fabric softener also leaves this waxy, greasy feel on clothes. So instead of fabric softener, I use a splash of white vinegar, which is acidic, so it naturally softens the fabric. I use 7th generation free and clear dish soap because if I use a typical scented dish soap, I can smell that on my hands for hours afterwards, and that's horrible. And I can also smell it on the dishes themselves, especially if they're plastic, like a plastic Tupperware container or the plastic lid of my travel mugs. That's absolutely horrid because having that smell, and as you're trying to take a drink out of your travel mug and having that dish soap smell right in your face, colors the taste of the coffee, which is horrible because I love coffee, and coffee is anyways, and if it's a plastic plate or a plastic Tupperware container, it'll color the flavor of the food that's inside of it. So I use the free and clear dish detergent also. I use Dial soap because it rinses clean. It rinses entirely clean. It doesn't leave any sort of residue behind. It also has an incredibly light scent while you're using it, but that scent rinses away also, and that does not stay with you. I use Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap for hand soap. So all the sinks, the bathroom sinks and the kitchen sink have little squirt bottles of Dr. Bronner's peppermint hand soap, because that rinse it cuts through grease and grime incredibly well, and it rinses completely free. So it's so you don't have any residue or that feeling on your hands. And also peppermint is not an offensive smell to me, but the scent doesn't follow you when you use that soap. Like I said, it rinses entirely clean. I use an argan oil conditioner on my hair and an argan oil hair gel, because argan oil is not a scent that is offensive to me. It's not offensive to me at all. It's a very light scent, and it's it's great for my hair. Unfortunately, I have to use very strong smelling medicated shampoos because I have psoriasis and dandruff, and so I need the medicated crap to prevent some psoriatic plaques from developing on my scalp, and I have to use the dandruff shampoo to prevent dandruff buildup also. But when I use those shampoos, I rinse the hell out of my hair after I use them. Like I'm literally like wringing the shampoo out of my hair in the shower. I don't wear deodorant, and thankfully I don't develop body odor. That is like the one genetic advantage that I have been given. Like I just, for whatever reason, Well, the reason is that my body doesn't produce a lot of fatty acids in my sweat, and so therefore there's nothing for bacteria to feed on, and so therefore I don't get body odor, because body odor is the byproduct of bacteria feeding on the fatty acids in your sweat. So thankfully I don't get body funk. When I have to go out in the world, I try to avoid people. I try to avoid the cleaning products aisle in like grocery stores or Target or wherever I'm at. I hold my breath a lot. I'm actually very good at holding my breath. I can hold my breath for a very long time. I have incredible lung capacity given that I smoke. And while I was still working, before I retired, I had a fan sitting on my desk, which would help waft away whatever perfume or cologne or body odor that my coworkers might have had. And it also helped me with my tendency to overheat too easily. So like I said, I don't have many sight related sensory issues, and again, I think that might be because of my long medical history with my eyes. But when it comes to taste, taste. I forgot to talk about taste. There are certain foods that I do react atypically to. For instance, to me, onions taste the way that body odor smells. Raw fruit tends to give me a cloying sensation, like my throat is closing up. Most fruit juices also do that to me, like apple juice, grape juice, etc. But oddly, I love orange juice and I love grapefruit juice. In juice form, I don't have the same reaction to them that I do when like just trying to eat an orange or trying to eat a grapefruit. I get that same closing. It's hard to describe. It's like my throat is trying to close or around. I don't know. There's a touch sensitivity aspect to fruit also, because I can't stand the wet stickiness that they leave behind on your hands. Vegetables, and in general, I love vegetables: arugula, lettuce, cabbage, asparagus, artichokes. So I'm not going to go and list every vegetable for you. In general, I like vegetables, but certain vegetables like gourds, melons, cucumbers, zucchini. I think cucumber and zucchini fall in the gourd category, actually. Cucumber, zucchini, avocados, eggplants. All of there's, for whatever reason, there are certain foods like those, certain vegetables like those, they leave this bitter metallic aftertaste in my mouth. It's like sucking on a penny. It's a weird aftertaste. And again, I think these things are, again, maybe because of that brain wiring thing. Like, for whatever reason, these foods, the taste sensation that I get from them is wired to different parts. I don't know what the reason is. I'm totally guessing here. I have many other food proclivities, but these are the main ones. And I manage my food sensory issues by mostly sticking to safe foods. I do make a point of trying new things, but for the most part, I stick with what I know to be safe foods. At restaurants, I find a dish that I like, and then that's my go-to every time we go to that restaurant. And like I said, I do try to make a point of trying new things. And so when I'm feeling comfortable and not overstimulated, I will try something else at a favorite restaurant, right? I'll try so that maybe I'll have 2 or 3 safe foods that I can eat at that restaurant so that I can rotate through those 2 or 3 things to get some variety. Um, but for the most part, I what I cook, what I eat, yeah, when I eat out, I mean, tend to stick with safe foods and things that I know are going to work for me. All right. Anyhow, this video has gone on really long. I did not think I had this much to say about it. But what I'm really interested in, what I'd really like to hear, is what sensory issues you folks experience, and more importantly, how you manage them. What stories, advice, thoughts, or questions do you have? What input into this conversation do you have that could help me or help others? So leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question down below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, keep living your best life and know that you deserve it.